There's still room in the cooler, so I'm thinking of stopping by Whole Foods for some extra snacks. I watched Jessica, my wife of 20 years, chatting through the open window of our luxury Tesla Model X. This family trip might be the last because our daughters will start college at Stanford University in just 6 weeks. Everyone was looking forward to this trip. Jessica has been somewhat distant lately, and I was hoping that this vacation would give us an opportunity to reconnect and strengthen our relationship. I was waiting for our daughters to have the opportunity to walk together and explore the surroundings, and also hoped for quality time with my wife, which has been so lacking lately. I assured her that the walk wouldn't take more than 30 minutes, and I didn't see any problem with that. With no fixed schedule, we left ourselves enough time to get from Seattle to Portland by mid-afternoon. I started loading luggage into the trunk of our electric SUV, having already packed everything necessary for overnight accommodation. Our twin daughters, who were 18 years old, were sitting in the back seats engrossed in correspondence with friends. It would be a whole month before they saw their friends again, which seemed like an eternity to teenage girls. During this time, the relationship between boys and girls was tied, broken, and tied again. Friendship was tested, restored, and tested again. The daily drama of high school girls' lives would continue without them for a whole month. The only way to stay up to date on all the important events that they missed was through their smartphones. We were able to travel in a Tesla Model 3, leaving the Model X at various airbases as a base. Hopefully, these adventures would help them take their minds off the important events they missed. Okay, I'll make a list so it's effective, Jessica said, pursing her lips and making a kissing sound. I love you, baby, she added and turned away from the window. This morning, she was wearing black Lululemon yoga pants, a black tank top, and white Nike sneakers. Her blonde hair was tied in a ponytail, and her lips were painted with natural gloss. With an average height, she had a natural slimness, and her figure was well proportioned. Despite gaining only 11 pounds since she played for the University of Washington's volleyball team, she had retained her stunning beauty. She was overwhelmed with joy at the upcoming vacation and radiated a radiance comparable to that experienced by someone returning to their roots. When I suggested the trip, she was hesitant at first, but over the past few weeks, she had gone from reluctant agreement to growing enthusiasm. This road trip was the first since the beginning of the pandemic. The girls were excited about the trip down the Pacific coast almost as much as they were about visiting Disneyland in California. Although they looked like their mother, their interests gravitated towards computer science and analytics like mine, and like me, they leaned towards the tech profession. First of all, they were teenagers looking for adventure and pleasure. As I was loading the last bag into the trunk, the screeching brakes of a red Tesla Model 3 caught me off guard. The car stopped abruptly, narrowly missing the back of our SUV. A young man jumped out of the driver's seat and quickly came up to me. He looked to be about 30 years old, had blonde hair and a beard. At an average height, he looked fitter and more muscular than me. In the 2 decades since I graduated from college and tied the knot, I've acquired a more paternal physique. I gained 20 pounds during my startup years, and I've now started running in the hope of losing weight. There was anger on his face as he approached me. "Where is she, you idiot?" he shouted, making me take a step back in surprise. Jessie, come here. I'm going to take you away from this controlling guy," he shouted. I felt confused and worried when this man appeared on our doorstep. "Who the hell are you?" I shouted, preparing for a possible confrontation if this madman decided to attack me. "Where's Jessie?" he demanded with even more aggression in his tone. The thought made me feel sick when my daughters got out of the car. I noticed that they took out their phones to record what was happening. My wife got out of the car too. She was ghostly pale, frozen in shock, and couldn't speak. "Jessie, let's go," he urged. "I'm taking you away from here, away from this controlling man. You won't have to worry about him anymore." He held out his hand to my wife. My daughters came up to her, hugged her, and asked, "Mom, who is he? Why does he keep calling Dad controlling?" Jessica was silent in response to their questions. Her gaze darted between me and the stranger, and there was shock and fear in her expression. Her mouth was slightly open as if she was trying to say words that couldn't come out. "I'm Jessica's fiancé," he informed my daughters. We're just waiting for your parents' divorce to end so we can get married. Closing my eyes, I took a deep breath, trying to pull myself together and avoid any outbursts, remembering that my daughters were filming the unfolding scene. Mom, what is this man saying? My daughter asked as Sophia watched in shock. Jessica, I whispered. She looked back at me, an expression of fear written on her face. Jessica, do you know this man? Are you engaged to him? My words seemed to hang in the air as my wife continued to look at me, her eyes full of confusion. I asked the stranger, how long have you been dating my wife? For the first time since getting out of the car, he looked hesitant. 10 months. We started dating when she was auditing our company. It dawned on me that he could be a client of her accounting firm, or maybe even a CFO of a company she audited. Judging by his appearance, he seemed like a tech executive. She told me about how you monitor her every move, track her phone, and check all her emails. How you're so controlling with her and the kids. I'm here to save her from your toxic behavior. Our father is not controlling. If our mom really said such things, then she's lying to you, Sophia said firmly. Mom, did you really say such things about Dad? Emma asked. Let me explain, Jessica said. Emma and Sophia's faces twisted in disgust. Explain, Emma demanded. Are you having an affair with this man? Are you unfaithful to Dad? Tears were streaming down the faces of all three women. I shook my head, now feeling there was no need to clarify anything further. I took Jessica's suitcase out of the luggage compartment and handed it to my wife's fiancé. She's all yours, I said. Turning to my daughters, I directed them to the car. Let's go, girls. We can still get to Portland by late evening. After giving their mother a disapproving look, the daughters turned away and headed for the car. Together, they turned to their mother and her lover, raising their middle fingers in unison. Jessica grabbed my hand, begging me not to leave. Despair washed over her in waves, and her lover stood helplessly by her side. Everything was not going as he had imagined. He had imagined himself a hero who had come to save her, but now he was faced with the fact that she was not a damsel in distress at all, as he thought, but someone who had created her own mess. Don't leave me, she begged. I don't want to see you anymore, I replied. I will contact Mark and start the divorce process. You need to find a lawyer and give his details to Mark. Mark Chun, my former college roommate and longtime friend, may not have specialized in family law, but his extensive network of connections allowed me to be sure that I was in good hands. When Jessica knelt down and started crying, I realized that her emotions were no longer able to devastate me the way they used to. The daughters took their seats while I drove the car away from the curb. In the rearview mirror, I saw Jessica burying her face in her hands and her boyfriend awkwardly put a comforting hand on her shoulder, watching us drive away. A trip from Seattle, Washington to Portland, Oregon along Interstate 5 is perhaps one of the most scenic drives in the Pacific Northwest. Lush evergreen forests line the highway, occasionally broken by views of Mount Rainier on a clear day. I remember when I was visiting my grandparents as a teenager, I came across an article in an outdated travel magazine. The article gave a rating of the 10 worst professions in Washington, and in 9th place was a cranberry bog worker, the person responsible for standing knee-deep in cold water all day harvesting cranberries. We did not visit Olympia, but immediately went to Centralia, Washington, a small town halfway between Seattle and Portland. We stopped for lunch in this small town and toured the historic downtown, taking pictures of the girls in front of the George Washington statue at the city park. The founder of Centralia was one of the few African-American pioneers in the Pacific Northwest, and his story was the impetus for a local documentary that had recently been released. My daughters and I love classic films. It seems that they inherited this trait from me rather than from their mother. In preparation for the trip, we organized a marathon to watch some classic road trip films like Rain Man and Thelma Louise. When we were driving to Portland, passing through Vancouver, Washington, all three of us decided to turn off our phones. I expected one of two outcomes. Either we would be inundated with calls and messages from Jessica begging us to come back for her, or there would be complete silence when she realized her newfound freedom to leave us and start all over again with her new love. Neither a controlling husband nor demanding daughters would hold her back anymore. A quiet ride along the highway gave me enough time to think about the situation. The Tesla Model X was my dream car, even though it didn't entirely belong to me. My parents, Michael and Linda Marshall, along with their close friends John and Emily Chun, had made a joint investment in our tech startup. My mom and Emily have been best friends since 8th grade, attended prom together twice, and even shared a room at the University of Washington in Seattle. It was at UW that Linda met Michael, a shy computer science student. After a few weeks of dating, Michael introduced Emily to his best friend John Chun, who also studied computer science. Michael and Linda got married 2 years after graduating from college. John and Emily tied the knot around the same time. Within 6 months of the wedding, both couples had healthy children. Michael and Linda named their son Andrew after Linda's family, the Andersons, and John and Emily named their daughter Jessica after Emily's mother. Jessica was affectionately called Jessie. She has always been a part of my life from the very beginning. I remember the first time I saw Jessica when we were very young, and our moms put us in the kiddie pool together. Now looking at old photos, I can't help but shake my head. Times have changed, of course, and today parents would be more cautious about sharing such pictures. Jessica and I were inseparable and shared all our experiences together, from our first ice cream cone to our first roller coaster ride, from our first day at school to our first kiss and beyond. There was nothing we didn't do together. Our bond was unbreakable. Jessica and I went to the University of Washington, where I studied computer science, and Jessica studied business with a focus on accounting. Jessica got her CPA certification, and I started working on a tech startup in Seattle. Jessica continued her education at Seattle University, and over the next 7 years earned her MBA in finance. She eventually started working at Deloitte as a senior auditor and gave birth to our daughters. Having experience in the tech industry, I decided to start my own company using the 6 software patents I had developed. After some legal consultation, it turned out that 2 of them belonged to my former employer, as they were the result of my previous work. The other 4 patents belonged to me by right and were not related to previous work. I was free to use and license them as I saw fit. I decided to license 3 patents and use the 4th one to create a software platform for e-commerce analytics. Despite the fact that we were originally 2 separate individuals with different career paths, we became one. Together, we were more capable, more resilient, and more content. It seemed that we were destined to stay together indefinitely, until circumstances changed. Jessica was already losing her way. She had a miscarriage 5 years ago. The pregnancy was unexpected, but at the same time, we welcomed it with open arms. Despite the initial shock, we were thrilled with the idea of adding another child to our family. After a tooth extraction, Jessica took antibiotics which, according to our doctor, could affect the efficacy of birth control pills. Regardless of the reason, we were filled with joy and gratitude for the unexpected blessing. In the 3rd month of pregnancy, Jessica began to have severe cramps while reviewing financial statements for a major client. She quickly excused herself from the meeting, went to the bathroom, and unexpectedly suffered a miscarriage in a women's bathroom stall next to the conference room. Despite numerous attempts to reach me, I was unavailable in a venture capital meeting without my phone. Jessica called her mom, who also didn't answer, and then turned to my mom, her second mom. My mother hurried to support her daughter-in-law. Jessica decided not to call an ambulance, and when my mom found her sitting at a cafe table in tears, they drove to the hospital by car. The doctor informed her that there were no physical problems, suggesting that her body could have rejected the pregnancy. It was possible that the fetus had complications that led to the rejection. Despite the fact that there was a chance of a successful pregnancy in the future, Jessica did not want to take any chances. After that, she asked me to have a vasectomy, and I agreed. Our family of 4 was enough for me. But Jessica's miscarriage took its toll on her mental health. It seemed that the cheerful and energetic woman I once knew had disappeared. She pushed away my attempts to show affection and became detached. Despite my offers of therapy, she refused to discuss her feelings and became angry. She isolated herself from her friends and stopped using social media. I walked around her like on eggshells, afraid to upset her even more. After talking to our moms, they advised me to give her time and assured me that she would come to her senses eventually. But I still doubted it. Suddenly, Jessica began to show signs of improvement. She started texting and writing on Instagram again, and I saw glimpses of her former self. Just when I was starting to feel hopeful, one Saturday afternoon, Jessica burst through the front door, frantically calling for Emma and Sophia. She looked almost panicked, with wild eyes and a sense of urgency. "What's going on?" I asked, grabbing her shoulders in an attempt to calm her down. "Why are you looking for the girls?" "I need to talk to them. I have to explain something to them," she said, scanning the area and avoiding my eyes. At that moment, my daughters entered the house and approached her. "Have you told him yet?" Emma asked. "No, of course not," Sophia replied. "Otherwise Dad will get upset. Girls, discuss this in your room. This has nothing to do with your father. I don't know what you think you have witnessed, but you are mistaken." They both stared at Jessica in disbelief and then turned to me. As we were leaving the tech meetup at the convention center, we passed by the registration desk for the Finance and Technology Forum and saw Mom openly kissing some guy. Emma said. I looked at Jessica sternly. "Jessica, can you explain what's going on? Are you cheating on me?" Tears were streaming down her face as she stood in the kitchen. Sophia added. When she saw that we were watching her, she ran after us. We ran into the Nordstrom store and lost sight of her. Then we ran home. We felt it necessary to tell you the truth so that she would not have the opportunity to deceive you. "Are you having an affair?" I asked firmly. "No, I'm not cheating on you, and I'm not having an affair," she denied, avoiding my gaze. "Then who is he?" I asked. "He's just a colleague," she replied. "I need a name," I demanded. "I want to know which of your colleagues thinks it's acceptable to kiss my wife." "I can't tell you," Jessica replied, "but I will make sure that it doesn't happen again. We will remain colleagues, but it won't happen again." "This is complete nonsense," I replied. "Tell me who it is now, or next time I'll talk to you in divorce court." Jessica turned pale, her mouth hanging open in shock. "You can't be serious. Will you ruin our marriage because of a professional relationship that has gone too far?" "Try me," I said. "Come on, try me." She refused to tell me his name, and so I challenged her to see what would happen. She couldn't hold back anymore. With tears in her eyes, she told me his name was Ryan Thompson, a CFO at a tech startup she was auditing. At first, he was just a sympathetic listener, but then their communication turned into inappropriate conversations, correspondence, and even the exchange of intimate photos, fortunately, without faces. I told her to pack her things and go to her parents. I made it clear to her that I didn't want to be around her at the moment. Jessica was too upset to drive herself, so I gave her a ride. When John saw his daughter crying and her husband, whom he considered a son, giving her a ride with a bag for the night, he realized that something serious had happened. Jessica was honest with her parents and also apologized to mine when they got the call. She made it clear that the kissing incident was just a kiss and nothing more serious than that. Jessica expressed concern when asked how the situation would have developed if the girls hadn't seen her at the convention center. "I think nothing would have happened. I hope I would have realized what a dangerous path I was on. I am very grateful to my daughters for their intervention and for the fact that everything is over." She did not delete any of their messages, which confirmed that she did not have an intimate relationship with him. I had no doubts that if she hadn't been discovered, she would have slept with him. I used to be naive about infidelity, but soon I began to understand this topic. I started to read internet forums dedicated to infidelity and learn a new language. AP is an affair partner, BS is a betrayed spouse, WW is a wayward wife, WH is a wayward husband, and OBS is another betrayed spouse. On the first day, you discover cheating. The next day, you realize that your partner is hiding the whole truth, trying to protect themselves. This leads to a drastic change in communication when conversations are reduced exclusively to practical issues, such as everyday life or children. The ultimate goal is to find a way out of a situation of infidelity, whether it's working on the relationship or divorce. There were other sites designed for those who engage in adultery, using abbreviations such as MM, married man. The secrecy of the affair was maintained with OPSEC, operational security, as if deceiving and misleading a partner required the same level of skill as CIA operations. I understood this concept. I didn't notice any signs of Jessica's emotional connection and was glad that it hadn't turned physical. I remembered that a couple of weeks before that very day, she started hiding her phone from me when she was texting. She even took it to the bathroom with her and slept with it under her pillow. These were obvious signs, but when you love and trust someone, it's easy to deceive yourself. The result of her little adventure was that I insisted she leave her job at Deloitte if she wanted to continue in the accounting field, then only in a smaller firm that didn't audit tech companies. In addition, she agreed to full transparency of all electronic devices without any passwords. I allowed my wife to use only the native iPhone messaging app on the old iPhone that I gave her. I controlled the device by setting my own password on it and ensured that location services were always on. I made it clear to her that any sign of infidelity would lead to an immediate divorce. She agreed to my terms, and I gradually began to trust her. I monitored our marriage by checking the cloned iPhone several times a day for messages, calls, and location updates. Every day, I logged into our Apple App Store account to find all the downloaded apps that could be used for cheating. This included not only dating or social media apps, but also seemingly harmless games with the ability to exchange internal messages. I also monitored her phone bills and compared data consumption with what was displayed on the cloned phone. Jessica started working at a small local accounting firm. Since she was the only accountant at the firm with an MBA and Big Four experience, Jessica's presence on the staff was considered prestigious for the firm. Jessica dreamed of starting her own financial consulting business one day. She thought she could combine consulting several clients per quarter with working on a book about financial planning during her free time. But the emotional affair got out of control. While acknowledging that her own choices led to her becoming a full-time accountant at a small firm with limited time for writing, she couldn't help but feel bitter towards me for pushing her into this role. We were trying to deal with her mistake and the consequences of the affair when we received devastating news of cancer 18 months later. Jessica discovered a small lump in her right breast during a routine self-exam. Although the lump was small, she decided to have a mammogram and consult the doctor just in case. A mammogram showed the need for a biopsy, which eventually confirmed the diagnosis of breast cancer. Jessica's mother and grandmother had both undergone mastectomies due to breast cancer. Unfortunately, Jessica's grandmother died as a result of a late-stage diagnosis. Emily, Jessica's mother, after learning that she was a carrier of the BRCA1 gene, made the difficult choice of a preventive mastectomy. After the analysis showed that Jessica was not a carrier of this gene, she decided not to have her breasts removed and preferred a lumpectomy instead. Despite this decision, the diagnosis still affected her greatly. Jessica had always been proud of her body, especially her firm breasts, even after nursing 2 children. The thought of surgery to remove even part of them plunged her into a deep depression that was difficult to overcome. For several months, she was estranged and unhappy with me and our daughters. Any little thing that upset her caused an exaggerated reaction. But one day, she suddenly changed and became the Jessica we knew and loved. It reminded me of how she behaved after the miscarriage when the depression lifted and she returned to her old self. I hadn't touched the cloned iPhone for several months, but I decided to charge it and prepared for the worst. After conducting a thorough investigation, I did not find anything suspicious. There were no messages sent to unfamiliar numbers on Jessica's phone, no photos or videos she exchanged with other people, no questionable apps or search history. She seemed to have turned her life around with a clean slate, taking advantage of the advice and determination. But looking back, I realized that I was only deceiving myself. In fact, I unintentionally taught her how to become a more skilled liar. I searched for hidden mobile phones more than once, rummaging through coat pockets hidden in the back of the closet. I searched the shoe boxes and shoes thoroughly, but found nothing. I searched every possible place in her car, under the seats, in the glove compartment, in the console, and in the trunk, but I still couldn't find anything. The only place I couldn't check was her office at the accounting firm, where she could hide her phone out of my reach. Jessica tried not to use her cell phone or computer when I was around, so that I could access them. Despite all my efforts and knowledge of infidelity, I was caught off guard when her lover suddenly appeared at our house. The drive from Centralia, Washington to Portland, Oregon was filled with silence as each of us reflected on the events of that morning. Our daughters knew about the impending divorce because they were direct witnesses to their mother's infidelity. Their pleas for reconciliation after the first betrayal were heartbreaking, but the second betrayal turned out to be even more devastating. Jessica's long-term affair, which included love and intimacy with her fiancé, made me boil with anger. The realization that she had deceived him about the state of our marriage pierced me to the depths of my soul, and I could not understand the depth of her betrayal. Not only did she speak ill of me as a controlling person, but she also fabricated stories about me. Although I have my flaws, I have never been controlling either through technology or mentally, as she claimed. We didn't stop at Portland initially. We planned to visit the Columbia River Gorge, one of the most beautiful natural areas in the Pacific Northwest. We were going to spend a few days in the area and then continue south on I-5 following the scenic route through Oregon. Our journey would take us through Salem, Eugene, and Grants Pass, Oregon. We would stop in Redding, California, and then head to San Francisco. From San Francisco, we would drive south to Los Angeles, where we planned to spend a week visiting Disneyland, Universal Studios, and other popular tourist attractions. After our stay in Los Angeles, we intended to head north along the Pacific Coast Highway back to San Francisco. In San Francisco, we planned to spend a few days exploring Fisherman's Wharf, and now that our daughters have turned 18, visit wine country in Napa and Sonoma Valleys. From there, we would head east through Lake Tahoe and Reno, Nevada, then north through Boise, Idaho, and back to Seattle. We planned a month-long adventure that we would never forget. It's funny that not everything always goes according to plan. As they say, man plans, but God laughs. Jessica and I visited the Columbia River Gorge as children during one of our regular family vacations. During our visit to the gorge, we explored various hiking trails and reached Multnomah Falls, the famous 620-foot waterfall that personifies the Columbia River Gorge. In addition, we attended a live outdoor concert in the Gorge Amphitheater, which left us completely delighted. The show featured a popular indie band and ended with an impressive light display. Attending this concert at a young age ignited Jessica's and my passion for live music, which has not faded to this day. Thanks to our influence, our daughters developed a love for concerts, and they both attended music festivals throughout high school. Fortunately, their musical tastes came from both of us. After loading the car, we realized that it was too late for a hike, so I lit the portable grill at our Airbnb and served hot dogs with potato salad. I allowed the girls to have either a glass of wine or a glass of beer at dinner. They both chose the wine and looked at me seriously. "I think it means a divorce," Emma said, looking at me with tears in her eyes. "Why did she do this to you? And why is she lying about you?" "She told that guy that you were controlling," Sophia added. "I doubt Mom will be able to give a reason why she lied," Emma said. I took a sip of beer before answering. "You're right, Emma. I doubt she can explain it, but I can." After a moment's hesitation, I decided to finish my thoughts. The twins have already turned 18, and it's time to have adult conversations with them. They are adults, and I will treat them like adults. No one wants to play the role of a villain in their own story. This is where the concept of the victim triangle comes into play, which has the roles of victim, rescuer, and persecutor. Betrayal contradicts the basic values of a mother who considers herself a good and moral person. To justify her actions, she must present me as the villain, not herself. If she's the victim, then I'm the persecutor, and her boyfriend, whether he's her lover, fiancé, or whatever she calls him, is the savior. Your mother understands perfectly well that I am a devoted and loving partner who has forgiven her in the past, but she prefers to portray me as controlling, invasive, and manipulative in order to shift the blame onto me and distance herself from her own actions. As I said before, no one wants to be the villain in their own story. The girl's expressions turned thoughtful as Emma nodded in agreement. If she's playing the role of Snow White and her partner is the prince, Then who are you? The hunter or the evil queen? I silently agreed. However, it didn't matter. Soon it wouldn't be my problem. Taking my iPhone out of my pocket, I decided to check the messages. Girls, step back in case this thing explodes, I warned jokingly. They giggled and took out their phones too. When my phone turned on, it vibrated and lit up with a stream of messages, missed calls, and notifications. I realized that I should have blocked Jessica before leaving Seattle, but had forgotten and quickly corrected this mistake. I also got rid of her messages and voicemail. All that was left were messages from my mom, Jessica's mom, and her dad. Strangely, there was not a single message from my father. Mom's messages started with concern and then became more and more annoyed. Andrew, it's Mom. Call me right away. I'm worried. Andrew, call me back. Andrew, you need to call me urgently, please. Andrew, call me now. It's better for you if you pick up the phone. I'm not kidding. I can't believe you decided to do this. Believe me, it won't end well for you. I couldn't help but wonder what her voice messages were like as her texts became more and more hostile. There was anxiety and urgency in her voice. Andrew, your wife is hysterical. You have to deal with this immediately. Despite her mistake, it is very important for you to put aside your pride, act responsibly, and support your wife. Andrew, I'm disappointed in you. Leaving your upset wife with a stranger while you go on vacation is unacceptable. The words were harsh and full of disappointment. I decided to turn on the speakerphone so that the girls could hear the seriousness of the situation. Their shock cannot be expressed in words. They were shocked and upset. I can't believe Grandma said such terrible things to you, Emma said. Sophia's face turned white, and she openly sobbed. I think it's clear which side she's on. The messages and voicemails from Jessica's parents weren't as harsh as those from my own mother, but it was clear they were upset, and it was clear that I was the cause of their anger. There were no messages from my father. It was a strange experience. I deleted all the messages and voicemail, and then watched the girls do the same thing without bothering to listen to them. We turned off our phones and sat around the fire pit thinking about what a difficult day we had just gone through. The next day, we went on an exciting hike through the Columbia River Gorge and then attended an exciting outdoor concert. The girls were delighted with the performance, and it turned out to be as impressive as I remembered. After spending 2 days in Portland, we turned off the I-5 freeway and headed south. Despite the fact that we planned to spend 4 weeks on vacation, we ended up staying for 5 weeks. Some of our day trips dragged on for 2 or 3 days before we finally decided it was time to return home. The girls were supposed to return to Palo Alto next week to check into the college's dorms and sign up for classes, so we had to get back on time. Initially, the 4 of us planned to rent a U-Haul truck, attach it to my pickup truck, and take the girls to their dorm room. Since they shared a room in the first semester, we thought the move would be easy. But everything went awry when their mother suddenly brought chaos into our lives. When we returned to our house, my father was sitting on the porch waiting for us. I looked around, but there was no sign of Jessica, her parents, or my mother. When I saw his motorcycle parked in the driveway, I realized that they did not accompany him, leaving him alone. Getting out of the car, I stretched and headed for the house. Dad, I called. Andrew, he replied with a smile. What's new? I asked, realizing that this was not a serious question. Nothing special, he replied. Are you alone? I asked. Yes, he confirmed. The GPS in the Tesla went unnoticed by them, and John's computer skills are as outdated as your late grandmother's. The realization that they didn't know about our return deeply disturbed me. Despite my tech background, I returned home with nothing. Have your phones been turned off all this time? We bought burner phones in Eugene so the girls could keep in touch with their friends, and I could keep in touch with work and Mark. Last week, Mark completed his task. He visited Jessica at her parents' house. It seems that everything went, to put it mildly, not very smoothly. Jessica has been in a psychiatric clinic since his arrival, so her parents are upset and angry at everyone except Jessica. And where's my dear mother? I asked. After listening to her voice messages, I realized that she was not on my side. She's so mad at the 3 of you that she can't even speak properly. This whole week has turned into a real circus, he said, using a more polite term than he might have chosen. I felt the girls were interested in learning more, but I wasn't in the mood for this conversation. Your mom's home, Dad said. I gave him a puzzled look. At her place? I asked again. Yes. I also filed for divorce, he said. After this unexpected revelation, we interrupted our conversation to empty the car and wash it thoroughly. When this task was completed, we lit the grill and cooked burgers for dinner. Remembering our trip, we deliberately avoided sensitive topics about Jessica, her partner, my mom, and other grandparents. Despite my assurances that the girls could visit my mom's house, they politely declined. Instead, they chose to visit their friends. After the meal, each of them hugged me and kissed me on the cheek, promising to be back by midnight. I took out a bottle of IPA beer and a bottle of single malt scotch, took 2 glasses, and joined my father on the patio. After pouring a couple of fingers of scotch for each of us, we started the time-tested ritual of sipping our drinks in silence. We took sips and watched the lengthening shadows of the night. Finally, I broke the silence with a question. My father took a sip of scotch before answering. She has always been very close to Emily and her family. Sometimes it seemed to me that she was closer to them than to her own family. The situation with Jessica led to a rift between us. I thought your mom would support you and be upset about Jessica, but it turned out that she wasn't. In fact, she was angry at you for leaving and at the girls for following you. She was even mad at me for protecting you. I didn't immediately see the messages she sent you, but I heard the voice messages she left. I didn't like what she was saying to you, but at that moment, I decided not to say anything. It seemed unnecessary to escalate the situation. I know you, and I know that after the last time she got involved with another guy, you were done with her. Did you know about the previous incident too? I was shocked. When a few months later I heard Jessica, Emily, and your mom discussing this. Although the previous situation was not ideal, it was not as difficult as the current one. It was obvious that all 3 of you had turned off your mobile phones. Your iPhone wasn't working, and you ignored your messages and voicemail. Every day seemed worse than the last. Jessica cried for hours and continued to live her life. Her parents were furious, and your mother became increasingly angry and hostile towards me. A week later, Jessica's parents placed her in the psychiatric ward of Northwest Hospital, fearing that she might harm herself. It made your mom even angrier, and that jerk hanging around her didn't help either. Wait, really? I exclaimed, shocked. Was this guy still involved with her? My father just nodded in response. He kept insisting that he would not leave her like her terrible husband did. My father looked at me with regret. Those are his words, not mine, he clarified. Well, isn't that wonderful, I muttered. I tried to convince him to leave, but Emily and your mom wanted him to stay. To be honest, I don't believe Jessica really wanted this, but she didn't seem to be herself. I couldn't understand her train of thought. During the last conversation with your mother, I made it clear that the person causing the problems must leave. Otherwise, I will. I asked her about her reaction, to which she replied, "Don't make me choose between Emily's family and you. You may not like the result." Disappointed, I confessed that I had always suspected that Emily's family was closer to her than her own. The next day, I moved into one of the apartments provided by my company for visiting clients. Mark Chin recommended a divorce lawyer to me. Later, we sat together drinking scotch and puffing on cigars, silently reflecting on our uncertain future. 2 marriages destroyed by infidelity, one directly, the other as an unforeseen consequence. I made an appointment with Jessica at her parents' house. I made it clear that I wanted us to meet just the 2 of us. No parents, and especially no fiancé. Jessica has always been amazing, tall, slender, fit, with blonde hair and a light tan. She looked much younger than her 42 years. This incident has not changed anything. My heart jumped into my throat when she opened the door after my knock. Both of her parents' cars, as well as my mother's, were missing when I arrived. Just a couple of hours earlier, I had been exploring the neighborhood and noticed that all 3 cars were parked in her driveway. I noticed the same Tesla Model 3 her lover had driven a few weeks earlier parked on the street 2 houses down from her parents' house. 2 hours later, at the appointed time of our meeting, I drove around the block and noticed his Tesla 2 streets from her parents' house. My mother's car was parked behind him, and there were two people in his car. It was incredibly infuriating. "Hi, baby," Jessica said, opening her arms and hugging me. "Stop it, Jessica," I replied. "I don't need your hugs," I said and headed for the armchair in the living room. I usually sat on the couch with Jessica during our visits, but this time I wanted to keep my distance. Jessica sighed and sat down on the couch opposite me. "We need to figure this out," she pleaded. "There's too much love between us to ruin everything because of one stupid mistake." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "A mistake?" I scoffed. "Getting engaged to another man while staying married to me is more than just a mistake." I shook my head in disbelief. "I'm here to discuss the next steps regarding our divorce. Mark Chin mentioned that you didn't tell him the name of your lawyer. The reason is that I don't want to get divorced. I love you. I believe that we can work together to save our marriage. I love you, and I know that you love me. Together we can overcome any obstacles. What about your fiancé? Do you think he has anything to say about this?" I asked. "He's not my fiancé. It's true that I had an affair with him. I made a mistake, and I regret it. I have feelings for him, but it's not love. My heart belongs only to you. Are you still with him?" Jessica avoided looking me in the eye. Instead, she was playing with her wedding ring. "How often? Once? Twice? Daily?" "All day long." Tears welled up in Jessica's eyes, and she became even more emotional. "You left me," she screamed. "When you left and left me crying, he was the only one who comforted me in your absence. You turned to him because you were upset that I had left you, but I left you because you cheated on me with him." It was like an old joke about a child who is judged for the death of his parents and then begs for mercy, claiming to be an orphan. Yes, but it's over now. "I don't see him anymore," she insisted. "So if I drive around the neighborhood, I won't notice him 2 streets away sitting in a car with my mother?" Jessica's eyes widened in realization when she saw that I had figured out her deception. I stood up and calmly told her, "Jessica, it's time to find a lawyer. Give them all the information about Mark. You can marry this jerk, and I can move on. We'll cross paths at weddings and funerals, but eventually, we'll drift apart and become strangers. You'll just be the woman I married once." She stared at me in horror, her face losing color. "No, I'll never be able to see you," Jessica sobbed, hugging herself and rocking back and forth, singing, "No, no, no." I got up, looked sadly at my future ex-wife, then shook my head and left the house. After driving 2 streets, I stopped next to this idiot's car. Rolling down the window, I found my mother inside, looking at me with hostility. "I just left Jessica's, and she's in a complete mess. You should go check on her," I said before I left. When I returned home, I realized that the road ahead would not be smooth. Jessica hired a formidable lawyer known as Jeanette R. Hoffman. She was called J.R. Hoffman in the press and became famous for winning the record-breaking divorce case of Seattle tech heiress Elizabeth Montrose for $320 million against her husband, software mogul Victor Montrose Jr. Many warned Victor against Elizabeth, as she had dated almost everyone in their social circle, but he didn't heed the warnings. His father was notorious for wearing a vintage watch with a crack in the face from when it saved his life during a mugging. His father not only survived, but also subdued the man who attacked him with his bare hands, a feat that the younger Montrose was not capable of. The elder Montrose died in a yacht accident 6 years ago, leaving his software company to the younger. I knew it wasn't going to be easy for me. At first, they insisted on marriage counseling, but I refused. It wasn't our marriage that collapsed, but my wife's loyalty. As a result, I was forced to attend 10 court-appointed sessions and could choose a consultant myself, but that didn't comfort me much. In the end, I chose Daniel Reynolds, who advertised himself as a marriage counselor specializing in the treatment of wounds sustained as a result of infidelity. Reviews of him on the internet were overwhelmingly positive, and he was even approved by the court. After a promising phone interview, Jessica and I finally met with him in person. I realized that everything was going to go wrong. "Mr. and Mrs. Marshall, what are your goals for this consultation?" he asked. While Jessica was talking, I silently added to the list that I wanted her to go back to her maiden name. I made a huge mistake. I cheated on my husband, and I feel a huge sense of guilt. I want to find a way to avoid divorce and strengthen our marriage." She said that. I stared at her in shock. "She's still with that idiot. She's even engaged to him, for God's sake." Daniel scolded me, reminding me to refrain from shouting and swearing in our sessions. He urged us to remain calm and respect each other. "Jessica, is this true?" he asked. "Are you really engaged to someone else, and yet claim that you are trying to save your marriage?" "It's true," Jessica admitted. "Ryan asked me to marry him, but I refused. I want to focus on saving my marriage." I looked at the consultant. "Do you think this is a classic case of monkey branching?" I asked. "Why do you think that?" he replied. "She refuses to devote herself completely to her boyfriend until she is sure that our marriage is over, but she also doesn't want to marry him until I agreed to forgive her. It's textbook monkey branching," I explained. Then Jessica said, "If you promise to stay with me, I'll tell him that I can't marry him. I will return the ring." I stared at her in silence, considering the situation. "The very fact that we are discussing your consent to a marriage proposal from another man shows how bad our marriage is," I said. Jessica was absently twirling her wedding ring in her hands that I asked, "When was the last time you had intimacy with him?" "I don't remember," she replied dispassionately. I urged her, "Jessica, let's be realistic. You're smart. You have an MBA. No one will buy this excuse. Jessica, how many times have you slept with him? When was the last time?" "This morning," she replied softly, and tears streamed down her face. I got up, thanked the therapist, and left the room. I knew it was going to be difficult, and it was. They tried to reason with me and attacked everything I owned: businesses, patents, everything. The twins went to college in Palo Alto, where I put them in a dorm against their mother's wishes. She hoped to join us, but both the girls and I rejected her attempts. The girls were not interested in reconciling with their mother, and I also cut off contact with my own mother. I didn't know if she was trying to contact me, but it didn't make any difference to me. My parents divorced, and since my mother had a successful career as a financial controller, there was no question of spousal support. After her father transferred ownership of the house to her with no outstanding mortgage, she had very few bills left to worry about. She promised not to interfere in his business partnership, and they went their separate ways. My father decided that he could not continue working with Jessica's father and included in the contract a condition that John had to either buy out his share or close their tech consultancy. John decided to buy out the share, and my father moved to the Bay Area, where he got a job at a prestigious tech firm, Ecosystems, the oldest cybersecurity firm in California. After much delay, Jessica and JR exhausted all possibilities to delay the divorce process. I transferred ownership of the house to Jessica and sold my company for a minimal amount, mainly for the value of physical assets. Half of the proceeds from the sale went to Jessica, as well as half of the rights to my software patents. In a last attempt to find a solution, I went even further and offered to completely transfer the patents to Jessica, provided that she signed the divorce papers and agreed to move on. Despite all the obstacles they presented, I agreed to each of them in order to put an end to the current situation. There would be no more attempts to extort money or property from me. It was all over. The divorce was formalized 3 months later. By that time, I had moved to Palo Alto and bought an apartment near Stanford University, in close proximity to various restaurants and shops. The twins regularly came to my house for dinner, sometimes accompanied by their friends. They liked the pool in the complex, and on weekends, girls in bikinis came and went to my apartment. I was struck by the number of kind and helpful young people living in Palo Alto. Every weekend, I received offers from them to help with the housework, although I must admit the presence of several well-dressed girls may have played a role in their willingness to help. 6 months after the divorce, my father, the girls, and I had a glass of wine together on the terrace of my apartment. For dinner, we had grilled meat and salad. I noticed that the girls looked worried and decided to ask them directly what was on their minds. "What happened?" I asked. "Mom called this morning," Emma replied. "Oh, how is she doing?" I asked. "She found out that the patents you gave her are now practically worthless," Emma explained. "A new company, AES Incorporated, with patents that have made the old ones obsolete. All the companies that used the old patents have terminated their licenses to switch to the new ones. AES Incorporated is a company that no one has ever heard of. Quite by chance, the initials of Andrew, Emma, and Sophia merged into the name AES Incorporated. I smiled at the girls and raised a glass of wine to my two smart daughters. Sophia quickly changed the subject. Tears glistened in her eyes. Mom is getting married next Saturday and wants us to attend the wedding. I shook my head in disbelief. How could I not know about this? My daughters wished their mother good luck at the upcoming wedding, but made it clear that they would not attend. They expressed their disapproval and stated that they did not want to have any ties with her new husband. They noted that Jessica was upset, but understood their decision. Mom admitted her role in the collapse of the marriage, admitting that it was her biggest mistake. Our grandparents, with the exception of your father, were on her side and expressed their support and approval. I don't understand why they are so hostile to you, Emma said. Finally, my father spoke. It's because you turned your back on their precious little princess. Don't get me wrong, I loved Jessica before all this happened, but she was always pampered. First by her parents, including your mother, then by you. She never learned how to be an adult because someone always took care of her. I'm worried about her. She shouldn't rush into marriage, especially with this guy. Naturally, the wedding took place. The wedding of the daughter of a famous tech venture capitalist from Seattle was written up in a society newspaper. Surprisingly, the article did not mention either the bride's previous marriage or her two daughters who received higher education. The article also did not mention the bride's unsuccessful attempt to commit the stupid mistake of self-harm on the wedding night. That Saturday night, when Jessica got married, I was relaxing on the terrace with a bottle of Blanton's bourbon, feeling melancholy. I took my guitar on the deck with me. Although I rarely played, I liked to pluck the strings when I felt depressed, usually accompanied by a glass of bourbon. It had been over a year since I last picked up a guitar, and it was hard for me to play the familiar intro to John Mayer's Slow Dancing in a Burning Room. It used to be the order of the day, but now I was stumbling on the chords. While I was trying to regain my rhythm, my phone started buzzing and ringing, bringing me back to reality. My daughters and my father called me at the same time. I ignored my father's call and answered Emma's call. "Daddy, did you hear that?" Emma asked. "What is it?" I asked sharply without any pleasantries. "What's going on?" "Wait, Sophia left you a voicemail," Emma informed me. "Sophia, my dad is calling," she said before including me in the conversation. "Dad, I'm putting you on speaker. Mom tried to harm herself tonight." I could hear Sophia crying and Emma trying to stay calm. Obviously, something was very wrong. Mom took a whole bottle of sleeping pills and was found lying in the bathroom during the wedding celebration. Breaking away from the celebration, she went to her room and did something reckless. The grandmothers went in search of her, eventually preventing a tragic outcome because the hotel maid found her in time. After analyzing the situation, I couldn't shake the feeling that Jessica's reckless behavior was destroying her life. The situation was deplorable and unfortunate. Fortunately, her family supports her during this difficult time. I feel sorry for her new husband and sympathize with my ex-wife. But as they say, these are not my problems. "Can we go with you?" they asked. "Are you going tonight or tomorrow morning?" Their question took me by surprise. "I'm not going to go there at all," I said firmly. "I don't hold a grudge against your mother, but she removed me from the role of her husband. If you decide to go, I will pay for the plane tickets and escort you to the airport. I'm sure one of your grandparents will be able to meet you." Their displeasure was obvious. As a result, the next morning, the four of us drove onto Highway 101, heading north towards San Francisco. I was stunned by my father's decision to join us. He just said he couldn't miss the drama. I walked my father to the Fairmont Hotel so he could check in and took the girls to the hospital. The receptionist led us into the waiting area, where I immediately noticed a lone man sitting gloomily, staring at the floor. My mother noticed me and angrily turned to me. "This is unconscionable," she said before my daughters intervened. Emma defiantly told her, "You need to shut up, you crazy old woman." "Step back, Grandma," Sophia snapped. "It's all because of Mom. She lied and cheated on Dad, got engaged to the man she cheated with, eventually married him, and then tried to harm herself." So please, dear grandmother, explain to us how Dad is to blame for all this. Mom collapsed on the floor and sobbed. Emily sat down next to her, and they clung to each other, sobbing. My ex-father-in-law gently put his hand on my shoulder and calmed me down. It's not your fault, Andrew. Either she or we are to blame for everything that happened. We should have taken action against this idiot when he first appeared after you and the girls left. Unfortunately, we let him stay. While we were discussing this, the man was staring at us intently that I asked my former father-in-law, "What's going to happen to her?" He replied, "We will take her home and give her the help she desperately needs. She needs therapy." The man stood up and turned to us, saying, "She's my wife." I replied, "Go to hell. Maybe someday she will choose you, but today is not that day." Her father-in-law intervened, saying that Jessica would go to her mother, where she would be cared for, and that she would be able to make a decision about marriage once her mental health improved. The man did not agree with this decision and quickly left. Soon after, the daughters were able to visit their mother. 15 minutes later, they returned to the waiting room and hugged me, crying softly. "Mom wants to see you, Dad," Sophia said. My mom and her parents looked at me with pleading eyes. "Please, Andrew," the father-in-law said. "It will mean so much to her." I shook my head sadly. "I can't. I'm not a family member or a friend anymore. I'm just the man she was once married to." My words hung in the air, and we all started crying. After leaving the hospital, I went outside, and 4 days later, we were back in Palo Alto. Before I left San Francisco, I talked to my father-in-law about everything that had happened since I moved to Palo Alto. When it turned out that the patents I gave Jessica and her fiancé were worthless, their plans collapsed. Jessica thought her lifestyle wouldn't change much, and this jerk thought he'd won the lottery by getting a beautiful wife and a successful software company. He decided to leave his CFO job and take over the management of his wife's company. At first, they discovered that I had sold the company at a very low price. Since it was sold to my employees, they had no legal rights. Additionally, my patents were replaced with new ones unrelated to the original ones, so there was no violation. They returned to their respective jobs, Jessica as an accountant and Ryan as a finance executive at another tech company. It was especially difficult for the man. Jessica blamed herself for their misfortunes, feeling guilty for her infidelity. She was deeply ashamed that she lied and cheated on me, fought for a divorce, and caused me pain and suffering. She never wanted to marry the scoundrel, but she felt obligated. Otherwise, why would she have subjected her family to such a shock, ruined her marriage, and her life for no reason? At least when she got married, she could pretend that everything was for the best. When Jessica's father escorted her to her future husband, he felt that something was wrong. Jessica felt like she was floating down the aisle in a haze of disbelief. Her father briefly wondered if she had taken any medications but quickly dismissed the idea, knowing that Jessica had never dabbled in such things. When she slipped away before the bride and groom's first dance, Emily and my mom went looking for her. I could only shake my head, feeling the futility of my efforts. My love for Jessica was unwavering and strong. It was a deep and lasting bond. Life went on. The girls went to college, and my new patents were successful, leading to significant sales growth for the new company. At the same time, I decided to plunge into the world of dating again. Although I was skeptical about my prospects at first, my daughters convinced me to try various dating apps and sites. They helped me create a profile and took countless photos until we found the perfect ones to exhibit. After going on a few dates, I realized that I couldn't find common ground with the women I was meeting. Determined to change the situation, I committed to getting back in shape, shedding the dad bod, and returning to my college weight. I was confident in my appearance and considered myself a desirable partner, but the women I dated did not meet my expectations. My friend Mark Chun, who was rebuilding his law practice to focus on tech startups and intellectual property, advised me to contact the same firm my father used. He assured me that they were the best in the state, if not the whole country, and represented the best tech companies. After getting permission, I asked my father to set up a meeting with a representative for my business. The lawyer I eventually met turned out to be Gabriela Rodriguez. Gabriela, although not as tall as Jessica, had an athletic build. Her dark hair, olive skin, and almond-shaped brown eyes gave her an exotic and stunning look. Despite my instant attraction to her, I realized that hiring her as my lawyer was not worth it because of professional boundaries. After 2 business meetings, we formed a professional relationship, and after just 6 more meetings, we both realized that we needed to explore things on a personal level. At that time, I was 43 years old, and Gabriella was 34. Gabriella had also gone through a divorce. She had tied the knot with another lawyer, but it soon became clear that he was only interested in her because of the opportunity to work with Rodriguez Patel Law Group. When his plans collapsed, and he realized that he would not be able to move up the career ladder thanks to his marriage to Gabriella, he began to change. The divorce was quick and easy for Gabriella, but it left her ex-husband so devastated that he eventually moved to New York. Marriage to an older man was not a problem for Gabriella since one of her ancestors, Maria Rodriguez, was 12 years younger than her husband, Thomas Patel, who founded the law firm Rodriguez and Patel almost a century ago. While Gabriella and I were dating, memories of my former life with my ex-wife Jessica and our daughters in Seattle surfaced from time to time. My parents and Jessica's parents lived nearby, just a few minutes away. I thought my happiness was guaranteed, but life had other plans. After my parents' divorce, I had almost no contact with my mother. When we did talk, she always asked me to make up with Jessica. Jessica's parents were experiencing financial difficulties, and there were rumors of a possible divorce. They missed their granddaughters and the old way of life. After being discharged from the hospital, Jessica decided to move in with her parents. Her husband did not like this decision. His disappointment grew even more when she applied for an annulment. 15 months after she was admitted to the hospital, Jessica suddenly appeared on my doorstep. When I opened the door on Saturday morning, I was surprised to find my ex-wife standing there with a suitcase. "Ready?" I asked, feeling overwhelmed by her sudden presence. "I understand that I need to fix a lot of things. I've been a terrible wife and mother to our daughters. I'm here to try to fix everything," she admitted, stunned by her words. I was at a loss. I was speechless until my wife's voice brought me out of my stupor. "Darling, who's at the door?" Gabriella's question made me completely come to my senses. She walked into the hallway in dark yoga pants and a white t-shirt, her stomach slightly swollen with our first child. I had once planned to have a vasectomy, but never took that step. I glanced at Jessica, who was standing in the doorway, then turned to my wife, who was standing in the foyer with a puzzled expression on her face. "The one I was married to," I said, carefully closing the door. I didn't see her again, but I heard she was in bad shape. Jessica lost her common sense and was in a psychiatric clinic under the close supervision of doctors.